And breathe. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Carrow Road. Norwich City have beaten Bristol City by 3-2 here tonight in what was a frantic, tiring, pulsating, intense game. Plenty to dissect from it. A thriller, I think you would describe it as. 5 goals, obviously, went in here this evening. I'm going to use an analogy that I just used to Chris Gorham, or a comparison maybe. The Premier League, if you think about it, is this slick, streamlined product. I would compare it to Formula One. It's nuanced, it's small details that sees drivers and cars win races. The Championship is banger racing. It is sometimes short of quality, certainly full of entertainment, but you come away watching it and you feel like the game, is kind of no quality, just vibes, is kind of how it feels. And it was an intense game, and a game that Norwich City have ultimately come out of on top. And I still feel, to kind of touch upon my last video verdict, which was of course the win against Coventry, I still feel like this Norwich team has more to give and has more to produce, and we need to see more from it. And those expectations, I don't know if that comes from what we've seen in the past, whether it's complacency, whether it's, and that's me looking inwards, by the way, whether it is maybe the ghost of the Premier League hanging over everyone a little bit, and everyone knows kind of what success at this level means. But when you get games like that, which I'm laughing, it really encapsulates what makes the Championship so great, but also so poor. And I found myself at times this season completely exasperated at the lack of quality that I've seen at this level. And these were two of the better teams going at it as well, by the way, and it was hammer and tong, and it was intense. It was a good game to watch, a watchable game of football, but there was still a lack of quality, and that's okay, fine. I think if you're a football purist and you came tonight, you would have really enjoyed that encounter. And ultimately, when anyone looks at the league table in May, it's not going to be the pictures that they look at, and they're not going to go around the gallery and look at the various bits of art. They're going to get to the end and see what the end result is, and see where Norwich City have finished and how many points they're on. And as things stand, Norwich are in a very healthy position. They sit 4 points clear of third with 9 games played. Them and Sheffield United really now beginning to look like the early pace setters, looking like the two that can really go on and maybe drive away from the pack, so to speak. And that's really interesting. I think that dynamic and that pressure that it puts on Norwich City, but they're also very good at this bit, and they've been in this bit before. Let's reflect on this game, because it was bonkers, and it's going to be hard for me to remember all of the aspects that happened, but we will try. Bristol City are the best team I've seen this season against Norwich City. They were brave. They left 3-on-3 at the back. I felt they had control in midfield all evening. They created wide overlaps that were brilliant. They were brave. They didn't sit in a mid or low block and just look to absorb pressure and wait for Norwich City to break them down. They wanted the ball. They wanted to probe. They wanted to make things happen. And it's the first time we've really seen Norwich in that environment. And I felt, despite taking a 2-goal lead, which we'll come on to, they didn't really respond well to that at points. And there were some really good defensive elements individually. But as a collective, for me, it just felt it lacked a little bit of a presence in midfield, someone who could grab the game, break things up, disrupt it, manage the game a little bit as well. And I think what we're seeing now, and I mentioned this to my colleagues actually during the game, is we're seeing a trend of, in the middle of games, Norwich City just lose their way ever so slightly. Dean Smith felt that was because of the scoreline tonight. There are other factors that it has been of in recent games. I'd probably agree with him. I think there probably was an element of Norwich City just lifting their foot off the accelerator, and at this level, when you do that, you can get caught on the chin a little bit. And I felt Bristol City did that, and they had a really prolonged spell of pressure when Norwich City were 2-0 up. They obviously got the goal through Tommy Conway just before half time, but they deserved that. And Norwich kind of went in their shell a little bit and almost became the team that they'd been playing in recent weeks. They went to that low to mid block and looked to absorb pressure, and it felt like they were trying to get through to half time. And I think if they do get to half time at 2-0, regroup, change the system, maybe this game alters a little bit. But they just gifted Bristol City a route into the game, and what you saw was a team already looking to be brave, seek to be even braver. You had centre-backs joining attacks. There was some really interesting tactical stuff they were doing, which you wouldn't necessarily associate with Nigel Pearson, by the way. But they're a good side. They're a good side, and they'll do well this year. They've got some excellent players. Alex Scott is someone that I think has a big future in the game. Antoine Semenyo, when he came on, was really lively as well. Let's look at this game then, because Norwich City again weren't at their best. Again, probably didn't produce a 90-minute performance, but have won the game again. And we've spoken a lot about the forward areas and the competition that Norwich City have. Teemu Pukki, when on form, when scoring goals, is the best striker, not just that Norwich City have, but that the Championship has. He's an unbelievable player at this level. Sniffs opportunities like nobody else, intelligent in terms of his movements and his running. But actually, the pressure that he creates on defenders is unbelievable. You look at the first goal, and really it's a fundamental of football. You get told it from the age of 8. When a ball is coming like that, don't let it bounce, because a striker's going to be taking that gamble. Pukki did, and my colleague Sam Seaman, I'll give him credit for this, made the comparison to that Wolves goal that Grant Holt scored, where he kind of flipped it over the goalkeeper and headed it in. This was slightly different. He kind of knocked it to the side and headed it in, but that was excellent. And then the second goal again, Teemu Pukki just awake, just smarter than his Championship opponents. I'm going to say Viner. I might have got that wrong, but Viner just caught napping, kept the line a little bit too deep. Aaron Ramsey then has the quality to slot him in, and it's an excellent finish that takes a slight deflection that probably pushes it into the corner. He's now 5th in Norwich City's all-time goal-scoring records. I think he's the best striker that Norwich City have probably ever had, certainly in my lifetime. So I obviously haven't seen various others who are up there, but certainly in my lifetime, in terms of pure finishing, in terms of goal scoring, he's the best. Now 5th in that best goals per game ratio of anyone in the top 5. He's going to overtake Robert Fleck. It wouldn't surprise me if he closes down Ewan as well. Now needs 20 goals to hit a century for Norwich City, which is remarkable. Spoke to him after the game. Some really interesting stuff about the summer and everything that kind of happened. So I'll kind of keep that up my sleeve for the time being. But that's worth keeping an eye out for. This game was interesting because it's the first time that we've seen Dean Smith make a change in game that hasn't perhaps worked or hasn't perhaps had the desired impact that he wanted. So when Bristol City had that spell where Alex Scott and Matty James just dropped a little bit deeper, just kind of pulled themselves away from Norwich City's 2-8s a little bit and kind of sat just inside the half. They were able to have a lot more success. It allowed Vyman and Conway and Wells to kind of buzz about and rotate and cause a little bit of havoc. They got the 2 wing backs really high, kind of suffocated Norwich's back four, and made really good overlaps in wide areas. But it was the midfield where they had the control and they had the physical control, the creative control in terms of possession and territory. And Norwich just didn't really know how to respond to that. You had players pressing, but pressing individually. It was a bit of a broken press at times. Dean Smith then changed it. He kind of swapped Aaron Ramsey and took Cantwell around. He pushed Nunez on and pushed McLean back and tried to go almost man-to-man in the middle of the pitch. And that didn't quite have the desired effect of it. He then in the second half brought on El Hernandez to come on and maybe to try and pin the wing-back out, but I felt Bristol City almost called Norwich's bluff in terms of that. They kept him high and it almost pushed on El Hernandez back into a more defensive role, albeit he did some very good stuff tonight. So that was fascinating to watch Norwich try and problem solve, and in the end, ultimately, they've won the game because of a defensive error, and a set-piece goal. And for me, it feels like the quality of the Championship is such that actually maybe Norwich City being at their best doesn't necessarily matter because they have the individual quality and they will get opportunities in games because of the quality of player they have on the pitch. And when they do that, and they do create those openings, because someone like Teemu Pukki or someone like Josh Sargent at this level, they will score goals naturally. And so for all the talk of performance and style, actually at the moment it feels like it's probably individual quality and individual moments of quality that are winning Norwich City matches rather than anything particularly structural. And that's not necessarily a problem. It was the case for long periods under Paul Lambert, certainly under Alex Neil as well. It wasn't necessarily about styles, it was about adaptations and pragmatism and adapting in game to different various situations. And I actually feel, even though maybe Daniel Farke was better as an ideologist, Dean Smith is better as a pragmatist. He's better at problem solving within games. He's better at making tweaks to nullify certain problems that pop up in games. He's a better problem solver probably than Daniel Farke was. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's a better coach or a worse coach. It's just striking how different they are probably in terms of their in-game management somewhat. And that's because one had a plan and had a complete belief in that plan, and that's because the other wants to impact games in a slightly different way. It's just a different outlook on how to do the same job. That's fascinating, particularly when you're a bit geeky like me. So yeah, Norwich raced into a 2-goal lead. They let Bristol City back into the game. Bristol City then continued where they left off without probably really having any clear-cut chances that I can think of. There was a couple of kind of scrambles in the box that Norwich City were able to get clear. Structurally, they defended well at times. There was a lot of last-ditch defending, admittedly, in that. Grant Hanley wasn't fully fit tonight. I also felt they kind of paid for maybe the right-footedness at the back. The left side, again, incredibly inverted and afforded Bristol City a lot of space to their wing-backs. Norwich City didn't really know how to solve that, because you had almost Vyman going out with Sykes, and they would create 2v1s a lot of the time against Byron, because Cantwell maybe wasn't, not a criticism of him, but he's just not a player that naturally tracks back in the same way as perhaps more defensively minded wingers do, and that's absolutely fine. But then you have to shift a midfielder across, or you have to shift a centre-back across, and you have to get the other winger in, and it just causes a little bit of chaos, and they managed that really well. So they had Sykes and him on one side, they had Wells and De Silva on the other, and that caused Norwich really real problems, because if they got tighter as a back four, they essentially afforded them more space. But if they stretched out, then suddenly those strikers were just sitting in those pockets in between the fullback and the centre back. You'd have Conway in the middle, and they were getting some joy from that. So it was a little bit of a headache for Norwich. There was a point where I thought they might go to a free at the back and just look to really cancel the game out. I think when you get a free at the back against a free at the back, often you get two formations that kind of clash a lot and make the game a bit boring. And in many respects, as a watcher, as someone who watched this game and as someone who loves watching football, I'm kind of glad Norwich City didn't do that. But it did feel like, from a game management perspective, from a winning perspective, at one point it did feel like perhaps the best solution. This was a good test for Norwich tonight, and I think it would have been a good test, not just because of the competitiveness of it, but also just to focus minds a little bit, because I think after Coventry, there was a lot of talk about the quality of the Championship, which I've kind of slammed again. I think I've definitely compared it to banger racing, which it is, but I mean that in a wholly complimentary way, in a way that, why am I going to watch banger racing? And you come away absolutely loving the fact that you've watched banger racing, you've watched cars smash each other up, and the thrill and entertainment of that. And I guess you could compare it to heavyweight boxing as well, if you liked. It's maybe not as refined, but it's two big blokes slogging and throwing punches at each other. It's a bit like that at times, this level. And it's a slog, and this is one of those games I think that crops up in a season where it's a test, and Norwich City were tested tonight, and ultimately they've come out the other end. And I've used this expression a lot throughout this season, and good teams win and find solutions to problems when they're not at their best, or in spite of not being at their best. Norwich City continue to do that. The league table is incredibly healthy. What they need to make sure now is that actually what happened at 2-0 here today doesn't happen and doesn't become a theme. They need to apply their foot more to the accelerator instead of lifting it. And because even at 2-0, the goals weren't because of brilliant craftsmanship or because they had a prolonged spell of possession and really broken Bristol City down. They were defensive errors on probably both parts. And the third one, obviously, a well-worked set-piece, first set-piece goal for as long as I can remember, by the way. So that now feels like a mindset for where Norwich are. And that's for everyone, by the way. That's for players, that's for supporters, that's probably for me as well in terms of how I judge it. Because there are going to be games like this. There are going to be games that are turbulent, and not every team is going to come up to Carrow Road and want to hold on to what they've got. Some of them are going to want to play a 3v3 at the back, which is brilliant. Really, really, really good to see a team come here and try and play football and be expressive and attack. And probably Dean Smith and Craig Shakespeare would have got a lot more out of that exercise than they would have other games where teams would come in low blocks and just try to kind of sit on what they've got, so to speak. So I really enjoyed it. Not sure it was the best game of football in terms of quality. It was really strange. So a couple of things I want to mention for the second Bristol City goal. Josh Sargent obviously scores an excellent header. The foul on Max Aarons, I think, is a foul. No idea really how the referee's missed it. It's an easy one to give in a area of the pitch. Aarons gets between the ball and Naki Wells. The arm comes round here essentially, and there's a motion that's a bit like that. That's a foul. But even then, Sonali plays it into Marcelino Nunez, who actually, before this era, I thought was having his best spell in the game. Still think he's a bit erratic, still think there's plenty to learn. but he just freezes, hesitates in the box. That invites Antoine Semenyo to the likes of coming on in and out to roll it off him and slot Crawley into the back of the net. But from that period, again, maybe a lot of pressure, but not a lot of clear-cut opportunities or real top-notch saves that Tim Krul was having to make. That's probably, in spite of, again, maybe the way I've just criticised Norwich City and their defending individually, probably a testament to what they're doing collectively. So yeah, weird. Weird, but entertaining and thrilling, and that's what we love about the Championship. West Brom next on Saturday. That's going to be an equally interesting test. I think a lot of their fans are kind of maybe in a similar position to where Norwich are at the moment, feeling that their team isn't necessarily in top gear, but it's a team that has promotion credentials and promotion aspirations, and whenever you get a test like that, it is a really interesting one for Norwich City because, and this is why I was so excited about kind of the week of Burnley, Bristol City and West Brom, because that looked like a real kind of let's see where Norwich City are at kind of week, and it hasn't transpired in that way obviously because of external factors out of Norwich City's control, and the minute silence and national anthem here was impeccably observed prior to the game. But it feels like we've been robbed of that test a little bit, and Norwich of course can make it 7 wins on the spin, which kind of maybe is a juxtaposition with where the general mood is at the moment. And I kind of spoke about it being a little bit flat in here at times, and I think that is largely because of the expectation that people have on this group, because the standards are high, because of last season, because of the ghost of the Premier League, and all of those factors maybe are making it a little bit more complex, a little more nuanced, a little bit more complicated than it has been. But Norwich City are doing what they have to do. They're winning games, and they've done that again tonight, even when they perhaps haven't been at their best, and actually for a large portion to this game were second best. And that is what you have to do at this level to get promoted. So there we go. 4 points ahead of third place after Reading were beaten 3-0 by Sunderland this evening. Table's looking healthy. Results are looking healthy. Now the aim is to make it 7 on Saturday. Plenty more at pinkin.com and the Pinkin Plus app as well, and there will be throughout the coming days. Thank you very much for watching from Carrow Road. I'll leave you. Thank you very much. See you soon.